Everyone, so all right, today I'm actually going to talk about one of the major frustrations I have. I've been in this field for over 25 years. I mean, well, yeah, probably 30 or something like this, but it's basically it's health. And the title here is a very simple one. Why is exercise physiology ignored when people care about insulin resistance, diabetes, and all the modern lifestyle illnesses? Okay, that's what I want to talk about. And it's doing my head in because the whole just reviewing things over Christmas, all I see are experts, real deep experts in exer in health, resistance, diabetes, from Cambridge, from Oxford. Some are. I was watching a video last night of a guy who is working, I think, in A&E, but so for an NHS doctor for the UK, and he's talking about all sorts of deep the physiology of insulin resistance, and it's brilliant stuff, but consistently misses exercise physiology and the benefits of it. They will all the time they will say exercise is, if it were a drug, it would be the most important drug you ever take. They say that, right, consistently across all these things. If you look at it, you'll see it, you can't forget it. Okay. And then they gloss over and talk about something else, and you're thinking, this is the most important thing that you're talking about. Okay. And it really is. Like, if you know where you're looking in the stats, it is the thing that we don't do anymore. It's move. Yet all we focus on is nutrition. That's pretty much everything. The reason for this is the medical industry is very, very specifically focused on certain things. And for the whole of human existence, we've focused on infectious disease. We have no idea how to deal with lifestyle. If you think about how people have no idea, the doctors can't get what they struggled with smoking. They struggled to deal with smoking. Why? Because doctors smoked themselves. They were the first to start. Well, they weren't the first, but, they were encouraged to start. It's the same thing here. Doctors themselves generally suffer from insulin resistance and diabetes because of the way they live. Now, I can waffle for ages, all right? And I've done lots on this channel kind of introducing it. But what I'm doing is collecting all the information together that I've been researching and learning about for decades, because now I'm starting to share it. And it still shocks me. It still amazes me. As much as people are becoming more aware, my word, do they still not get it? Okay. So the kind of stuff I read is this. Now, this is an older book, but it's written by this guy in particular. Okay. He really has been researching it for a long time. And these other guys as well, they've done it too. Okay. This is one of the books. I'll point out a couple of things in there, but you can probably imagine there's a lot in there. All right. I've got loads of books like this. And I'm doing this because people say, well, what on earth do you know? You're not a doctor. I haven't got a white coat. Like, yeah, I chose not to go into that area because I noticed it wasn't the best way of fixing things. And it wasn't the best way of protecting my children from these kind of diseases. It's those kind of decisions I made. Because the history of medicine is actually, and this might shock you, but if it does shock you, that means you don't know anything about medicine. Medicine has been, for thousands of years, consistently getting things wrong. Galen, that was thousands of years, Roman physiologist. This is how the body works. It was complete baloney. And what you find is, at one point, people were working on cadavers, so dead people, and then suddenly working on bringing life into the world, so on women, and it infected women because that's disgusting. This went on for millennia, for hundreds of years, and someone had to point out this is bad. And that runs throughout medicine, because medicine came first, and what you find, therefore, is it's resistant to change. So when it comes to exercise physiology, since nobody knew about it, they didn't really understand it, and particularly the key point being is 200 years ago, people didn't have enough food, but they had plenty of movement. I say it because it's obvious when you think about it. You can't escape it. All our ancestors, every single one of them 200 years ago, unless you were really rich, you had to move a lot because there weren't any lifts. There weren't any cars. Only the rich could be on horses and get taken places. Otherwise, you had to walk, you had to move and get places. You had to build your own house. You had to fix it. You couldn't suddenly bring someone else to do it. Everybody knows this. When you think about it, it becomes obvious. And just watch films, proper films made either about the past, but particularly ones made in olden days. Like I'm watching some of those in the 70s right now, and you can see the difference in people. People just weren't as big. They couldn't be, because life hadn't been made as easy as it is now. Now, all this has actually been known. If you know where to look, the trends were there, and science was aware of this, and this is the route I went. So I've been holding this little book here for a while. It's even heavier. It's twice as heavy the other one, all right? Exercise Physiology. It's an actual subject. People talk as if this isn't understood. It's really deeply understood, and it does my head in, because it's really blooming obvious how to fix all this stuff. And I get a bit tired of doctors running around and everyone else following the doctor and ignoring when I say, because people close to me are now realizing everything I've been saying for 25 years. Yeah, of course it's flipping obvious. Why? I learn from people who know exactly what they're talking about. So exercise physiology, in terms of, so going to Loughborough and you learn about it there. And actually, I was in 2 lectures there where you could tell the 2 lecturers didn't talk to each other because they were telling you directly how to fix diabetes, directly there. And every single explanation I've had, and I'll put some links if I remember to, if I don't, please, and you want to know, then remind me, put a mention on this, put a comment on this video to remind me to put it in there. But it's how to fix it. So all these videos, there's one I'll put in there that's really good from a doctor I was watching last night. It's great. He's doing a really nice job, and he's outlining it in lovely detail. However, nothing he said is anything new that I was told 25 years ago. And this is how long medicine takes. Oh my God. And it's the same when you come to anyone who studies stuff at uni and you study the absolute newest stuff, yeah? And it takes 10, 20, 30 years for this to filter down to normal life, or 50 years. And that's what I'm seeing. Exercise physiology is young and new, and therefore it's not respected. People will tell me it is absolutely not respected. Because I just went out and earned real money and did something else, because I noticed you couldn't actually make any money doing sports science, exercise physiology. Now there is a bit more respect for it, but still, no. Because I'm an engineer, I've seen what respect is like. I get respect as an engineer. I do not get it when I talk about exercise physiology. Except when you're in the gym and people only want to know certain things, they do not actually, you can see them, they get bored. Very much because this stuff's really technical, really technical. So, am I getting to the point on this? My apologies. It's so complicated and there's so much in the background. That's the problem. Humans are not simple beings. We are trillions of cells all working together, okay? So every single thing you're looking at here is billions and trillions of cells. Okay, just my head will be a certain trillion of cells. And trillions is just numbers so big, because 1 million's a lot. A billion is 1,000 times more than that. It depends on the way you work on maths, so I'll leave that for other people who want to care about it. But anyway, a trillion is 1,000 billion. It's just phenomenal. The point is that each cell in itself originally lived on its own. It's insanely complicated. And that's the biggest reason that everybody gets lost on this. And you'll find with medicine, it is not a focus on humans at all. It is a very specific focus on ill health in humans. And really, if you're not falling apart, they don't care, because their concept of healthy is very vague and isn't really necessarily what's enough to be properly healthy for a long period, because they're just looking at populations and what's healthy in Europe or what's healthy in England or what's healthy in America. That's all they're doing. They aren't looking at specific individuals. Even what I've just described there is quite vague. But basically, it's not perfect. And humans are so complicated that to fully understand how this all works, you need a lot more information than just the basics of medicine. Because medicine's incredibly complicated and doctors are very, very good at what they do. But there's a lot they don't do and a lot they don't know. So they're good at infectious disease. They're not good at lifestyles and lifestyle change. So this book here, I was just thinking, well, how do I express it quickly? And I'm popping in and out just because of the way I'm recording this. But I'm not a YouTuber. I just want to share information. So I'm going to see if I can show this. So I'm going to take some, I'm not going to show pictures and stuff in the books because of copyright and all this kind of stuff. But I thought, how can I make the point? Because so much of the research I see is still saying great things, but it's not connecting with exercise physiology. Well, I've done a video that's I'm starting to implement the things that I'll share this year, which are if you want to live a lifestyle that heals you, you need to understand healing in the first place. And that's got three principles. Three. Okay, I'm putting them in three things because I've just done so much research and I see the same pattern every time. If you want to heal properly and your body wants to heal, and each cell in your body wants to heal, and it will heal if you let it. But you've got to do three things, which is you've got to get the supply, right? That's generally nutrients, but it can be supply of effort and things like that. Demand. So when you run around, you create demand. And that's the thing that people are not getting. You find the doctors have no concept of this. They don't quite realize they're talking about supply, demand, and regulation. So the supply is the nutrients. The demand is exercise in this instance with insulin and diabetes and insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. It's the demand for the energy. This is an energy problem. Metabolism is all about energy. Diabetes is about an energy problem because you're getting sugar in your urine. They knew this 100 years ago. The name comes from that. It's a Greek name. And all it's saying is that your body is dysregulated. It's not regulating energy properly. That's really what's happening. And exercise allows you to, or it's your main function in your body to channel your energy. There are lots of other things that do channel energy, but it specifically triggers so many things, more than just the use of energy. Exercise sets your entire body up to use its energy properly. Now, that's actually a really complicated topic. So I know what I'm doing is I'll be breaking this down into a few different types of courses at different levels because it's so complicated. And I like the complexity of it. I'm an engineer. I like that kind of stuff. But to get people into it, I'm starting with something simpler. So here I just wanted to kind of just start to mention, you've got summaries. Here is the importance of regular physical activity for people with type 2 diabetes. That sounds a bit technical, doesn't it? And it's from this book. So this is the first one that I showed you there. Okay. I just sort of pick out an area. It's hard to see in it, isn't it? It's blocking it out. It's oh my word. See, there's always something with this tech. First it was the sound. I had to reboot the machine. I'm a bit tired because of that. It was taking flipping ages. Then it's the way I'm presenting it here. Should I do it something else? The tech's constantly getting in the way. Okay. So I'm just going to read this. The background's from when I took the kids to see the seals, the Horsey Gap. And the whole point is I'm making it simple as a dad, as a parent, as a busy person who works all the time. So you'll be busy. You'll be thinking, how on earth do I keep the kids healthy or whatever it is, or live a life that makes me healthy? I want to show you how to do it, but what I notice is people don't understand the value of what I'm sharing because they don't realize that actually we just need to live as humans. Humans are designed to move, not to sit around doing nothing. So the invention of TV, wonderful, frees us up, it's great, but it also kills us because it's very hard to watch TV without sitting down doing nothing. So for me, it's not say don't watch TV because you'll be watching this right now on YouTube, which is the new TV. It's actually live a life where you need the rest and recovery, so a place where your body can regulate itself. So when it does the fixing is when you're doing nothing, well, that's where you watch TV. So it's all about balance and it's all about moderation. All the stuff that you'll have been told and you know you associate with health. Okay, it's balance and moderation. So here I want to show you the value specifically of creating demand within your body for energy, because right now we have none. When you sit down and do nothing, that is the least energetic you're going to be. And we don't realize this. It shocked me once I realized how inactive I was being when I watched lots of TV and then I drove somewhere and then you go and sit down, whether it was at school, at work and whatever, and you go, blimey, it feels like you're doing something all day because you're tired, but actually you realize you aren't. And once I realized that, and it took me quite a while, even though I was doing sports science, physiology, all this kind of stuff, you don't really think about your own lifestyle in that way. Partly because you do bits of running around here and there, you know, when you're young. It's a lot easier when you're young. But now people are so static that they're starting at the worst point. It used to be people got ill later on. But now they start, and many people, particularly children, are already very deeply unhealthy by the time they're 11 and 12 because they just don't move. And your body must move. If it doesn't, it creates no demand for energy. So your basic metabolism just falls to the bottom that it could be. And therefore, you don't even need to eat much before you start to have these problems. Because every time you put energy in your body doesn't know what to do with it. That's all really what's happening. So in that situation, you're set up for very serious problems in life. And that's what we're seeing now. This isn't new. This has been predicted, and the evidence is there. It's consistent, but it's very complicated, which is why it's hard for me to make short videos, because it's so complicated. So I can summarize the stuff, and there's lots on my sites and whatever that summarize these things, but people do not get it. Doctors do not get it. And it's frustrating because everyone goes straight to them, and then their answers are not good enough. But it's partly, they'll even say the right things, but the society itself isn't set up so that a doctor could prescribe exercise and health, because the people implementing that often don't understand. So the whole process of getting people healthy needs complete revision, the whole of it, which means thousands, millions of people, entire industries, that kind of thing. It's profoundly complicated because we are just not set up for modern illnesses. We're really set up for ancient illnesses and all the things in the past we needed to deal with, but not for modern life and society. So we need to change so much. That's why these videos will go on consistently long. So the summary that I wanted to just read out, and apologies that it takes a while, but there is so much to say, and people just don't have a clue how they work. And we are so insanely complicated. I don't know how to express to people how complicated we are, because each time I think of one thing, in my head, I'm thinking 200, 300 other things that I could say, but I'm thinking, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that, because it overwhelms absolutely everyone. I'm very used to everyone, serious engineers and doctors and whatever. You can see that they're completely lost with what you're telling them. So it's not their ability to understand, it's the fact they genuinely don't understand something like exercise physiology, which is as much a topic as nutrition is, or cancer is, or any other thing, and it's directly related. Exercise has so much research related to cancer, how to fix it, how to reduce your instance or chance of cancer, directly related to exercise, because it takes away the energy from cancer. And again, I don't know how to, it's profound to me to think that we are literally matter that's made from light, but that's the weirdest thing in the world. You can actually show that if you go through the physics, then chemistry of it, and then the physiology of it, that is actually what's happening. But that's for another video. It's just mind-blowing. But cancer, yeah, you can reduce your chance simply by exercising. Your chance of diabetes and insulin, yes, exercise, move, but you need lots of different kinds. So the summary here was, from this book, was simply, the prevalence of type 2 diabetes has increased dramatically in recent years. Now, this was a book in the 2000s, but they've been predicting it, and it's happened exactly as they said they would. And has now reached epidemic levels. The increase in this disease correlates with increased rates in obesity and sedentary behavior. They are linked. They're directly linked. And decreases in physical activity. Without the activity, you then find that you're in excess of 100 to sometimes quite often 1,000 or 2,000 calories per day. It's a lot to lose. But it depends on the way you set up your life, because you can set up your life where you'll actually be using energy in different ways. It's a whole other topic. It's very important. But just not, I've got on my site a little calculation that shows if you had 100 less calories per day, then over a year, that would be, I think it's a stone. I think it might be half a stone. So if you did that each year, just down by 100 calories on average, but you could put on half a stone each year, that would compound and make your life harder and harder. And that's a whole load of energy that's just sitting around your body, doing nothing, not helping you. These are the kind of things we're talking about. But exercise itself just creates a nice little demand for energy that makes your life easier. Well, the thing is, there's more to it. It's not just the storing of the energy in terms of the numbers. That is actually a fallacy very much in the way that people look into it. It's different to that in that when you exercise, the demand that you have for the energy is actually what's key, because you get used to your body using the energy and sending it out of the system. Okay, this is really where it's much more useful. When people add up the calories, they're missing the point. My apologies, this is what I wanted to show, but I got so busy dealing with the tech, just setting this up, I kind of lost that because, and again, should I plan this better? Of course I want to, but I'm trying to get to a point where I'm good at explaining it first, So I'm putting things on YouTube so I get used to presenting, and I can look back at my videos and think, all right, I need to do this better. I need to do this better. But equally, you could do the perfect video. No one would notice. I've noticed that. They just don't get it. The better your video, the worse people will see it. Because they just have no idea, genuinely no idea how they work. It amazes me that people put so much effort in their house, their job, their cars, but nothing into how they actually work. So people have great cars, great houses, and great jobs and spend all their money on fixing their own health and paying it all to people who don't even know how to fix it. That's the economy right now. And that's actually how economies have always worked. The less people know how to fix something, the more they can make. It's weird, but I'm an engineer. And if there's one thing I've noticed, the faster you fix it, the more you should charge, not the less. But engineers don't like to do that, nor do creative people. That's the background I have. So I've had to learn from other people, no, if you want it faster, then pay more. So here, I'm in a beautiful situation where I don't have the money that other people have, but I have the health they would love and they'd pay millions for. Well, I've got it. So yes, I'm waffling here, but I need to really, because people need to listen to this more. They need to slow down and realize if you appreciate your own ancestry and realize the challenges they faced and the way they lived, you'd realize that you just need to reapply that in this modern world and you'd have wonderful health. Because what we didn't have in the past was great food. We have amazing food now. What we did have then was loads of movement and lots of different celebrations and ways of living that were just in tune with who we are. So you adjust to these. You just learn from the past, learn from all the history that's there, and learn from the science that has actually predicted all this stuff. So appreciate that medicine only looks at specific areas. And things like, the reason I'm saying this consistently is to remind people that actually the history of medicine is very clear. And one of them was cholera. People didn't even know. So it was 200 years ago. I just checked again. It was about 1815, I think it was, in London. Something like Streatham or something like that in London. And there was a well. And the discovery that cholera was a waterborne disease that had cells and infections. It was infectious disease in that water that came from John Snow in 1815. Before that, people didn't know. They thought it could come from anywhere. And so one specific person went through and made the point, and that's really all I'm doing in exercise physiology. All I'm doing with this healing process, the regulation of it, those three principles, it's the same thing I've seen everywhere. It doesn't matter what the disease or anything. You need to understand your body needs supply of resources. It needs to create demand for those resources, and then you need a regulatory process. That is true of cholera. In terms of fixing things like your immune system, if you want that to work well, you need to support it. So you need to give it nutrients so it can deliver things. You create the demand, well, that would be the infectious disease itself. So you then need to let your regulatory processes do the work. So if you want to support your immune system. So yes, I'm rambling on this, going a different route, but it's the same process when it comes to any form of health. Three main things to help your body heal. So when it comes to insulin diabetes, you need to create movement which creates energy demand, but also demand for your cell to use energy properly, to not lock it inside the cells, so inside the fat cells, and particularly as well, to not just leave energy lying around the body. That's actually what's happening if you listen to descriptions of studies of insulin resistance and diabetes and heart disease. You'll notice that energy is just randomly flowing through the body, because in the modern world that is so prevalent, because we're not living in tune with how we're supposed to live, because we used to have a lot more fasts because there wasn't as much food around. So it's the same concept, and it gets irritating because it's just the same thing. Now, let's carry on with this discussion. There's now strong epidemiological evidence that regular physical exercise can prevent or delay the onset of type 2 diabetes. Okay? When it comes to science, they are so conservative, and that's their job. They take ages, just like any decent engineer. The best ones really test and really know what the fix is. Same thing here. Their wording is very subtle, but it's actually really profound. There's no doubt in this. Because this is book after book after book after study after study after study. Because the difference in our lifestyles now is just completely sedentary. There was no concept of sedentary 200 years ago because no one was, unless only the richest were sedentary. And only these people who had lots and lots of food available could be sedentary. Otherwise, everyone had to move. So the mechanism for this beneficial effect is thought to be attributable to the effects of repeated bouts of exercise to improve overall glucose homeostasis. Now that is key. And the thing is, in this book, they don't explain it in the way that I got it at Loughborough. Because there was a specific set, and it was for weeks and weeks and weeks. We went through specifically what happens when you train hard for a marathon. And I've never seen anything since that, and this is the frustration. That hasn't been put together in the way they put it together. It was really, really good. And what it showed really is just the use of energy in your body. It favoured fat once you start to train, and this is why it's so good. But it's using normal physiological processes. It's saying with your cells, they choose to let more fat in once you get training. And I'm going to finish this point and then move on to the next one, because that really starts to outline it. Okay, I'm practicing now so that later, maybe a few months or a year, I can actually express this a lot better and a lot clearer. But I don't have the time, the resources to put all this together really, really well. A lot of it is because I'm scared of copyright issues as well. I don't want to share all this stuff here because you never know when someone's going to say that was my work, which is all fair enough. But I'm also tired of industries and people just not getting really simple facts that kids need to run, and parents, it's better to actually play with your kids and have fun and go out on holidays and muck about with your kids on beaches and things like that. That's better for health than going to gyms and buying all this, whatever is the latest trend, which right now is protein. That's a different way of killing yourself. And now that's blunt, but sometimes you just need to be blunt. Okay, all these trends are always complete mismatches of everything, and they're just ways to make money out of people's fear of health. But they have to create a fear first, and then they'll get you to pay lots of money. Well, I get to ignore all that because, well, I know it's pointless. I know it doesn't work. I know because I know how I work, so I know what I need, and I know how to get stronger and live it. And if I get it wrong, okay, that's life. But so far, it's working incredibly well for me, and I just don't have the problems that anyone else has, which is the key thing. So again, I get a bit excited about this, as you'll probably notice. But here, what it was starting to highlight was, and here it's talking about glucose metabolism. And the thing is, when people separate all these different energy sources, they're missing the point. It is actually about getting your body good at using whatever energy source is available to essentially fund. So to get the energy available to do the movement. That's really all you need to do. Once you get that, your body has systems to convert between energy types. So particularly there's gluconeogenesis, which is creating new glycogen, which is sugar. Well, that's one to trigger from fat, because the thing is you can store lots of fat, you can't store much sugar. So now, sugar, it's annoying because sugar is actually a standard type of energy. But we talk about refined sugar, but we only ever say sugar. But we mean refined sugar, which is the raw cane sugar type thing that we have. Normal sugar is just pasta, it's complex carbohydrates. That's sugar as well. This is where it gets so complicated. And it's irritating because then everybody completely misunderstands everything. You need carbohydrates, they're perfectly fine. And carbohydrates aren't generally stored as carbohydrates. It takes about 10% of the energy of the carbohydrate to convert it into fat. So that's wasted heat. It essentially comes out as heat. That warms you up and means that whenever you eat those carbohydrates, you're going to turn them into fat, and it's going to lose energy in the process. That's a good thing, isn't it? Yeah. This stuff, the more you look into it, the more you realize it's not, it starts to make sense, okay? But really it's just energy, because what happens is when you train for long distance running, for example, your body starts to favor fats, but it needs carbohydrates around just to trigger the metabolism of the fat. And what's most important is that your body, your cells, so in the muscles and things, gets really good at letting the fats in so that it can metabolize them. And that's the key principle behind this. Because you get your body using energy, it then becomes good at using energy. I'm going slow and being overly clear about this because it's as simple as that. In terms of your body before was a closed shop for energy. It couldn't metabolize the energy, even though it was there. That's really what's happened. When you get unfit, your body can't use the energy that's right there. When you get fit, it's suddenly able to. So all these maths that you talk about that people go through when it comes to diets and stuff, I can see so many holes in every part of it. It's just people don't get how complicated metabolism actually is. And if you knew all the studies, all the ways they studied it, you'd start to see the holes yourself. Because we're unable to see a cell, like to measure it inside your body. We have to infer everything. When you infer, you can never be as scientific as you'd like. It's not like when we have petri dishes and we can test things exactly. It's nothing like that. So inside, the way they measure all these calories and stuff is very vague. It's not that exact. It's not as exact as it should be. And it's mainly because they're asking the wrong question. It is not the number of calories that's everything. Never has been. It is your ability to access the energy and turn it into gas that you can breathe out. That's what's important. It's important to use that as a metabolite. And there's another thing that I still want to see tested. And it's something I've mentioned elsewhere in another video, but it's a consistent thing. We don't just use carbohydrates and fats as energy stores. We use them as structure. Okay, so your cells have lipid membranes, so fats are used to build cells. We have structures of sugar. DNA itself is a sugar. Your cells themselves have carbohydrate structures throughout them. And they're really important to keep any cell working or functioning. It keeps the right shape. Proteins, every single life process depends on a protein. So everything you're eating isn't just energy, it's used as an actual tool within the body and a structural component within the body. So when you exercise, you increase the need for the structural tools and the processes to work properly. So you don't just use the energy and they're measuring energy, but they don't measure how much of that food has gone into functional components of the cell. And to me, that's the fundamental question, because a lot would have been converted and used just to maintain, to remove old processes, old tools and mechanisms that weren't working well, and to create new ones, just like we see in real life, to get resources going through. The whole of the system is never, for me, tested properly, recorded properly. The research doesn't look into detail. However, the simple fact is, people who move better, people who know how to cook, and people who sleep well don't suffer from these diseases anywhere like all the other people that do. The stats are consistent. So I can see how long the video is getting. I expect it could be a while. So I'll try and finish this and then I'll get on to a little comment on there. If you're still here, thank you. And I bet most people have left. But that just shows that you actually care about this stuff, because I don't have the problem keeping my kids really healthy. They're as healthy as they should be, and they're happily eating raspberries and strawberries because they actually want to, and carrots and things like that, because they associate that with going and playing with just having fun. Because all I do all the time is have lots of fun with my kids, because it's the best thing for them. I'm trying to help you do that. Okay. So here it says, as examples, exercise increases glucose uptake and subsequently reduces insulin secretion from the pancreas. Future research should focus on understanding how these important metabolic changes occur at the molecular level, which is what I've been saying, which may provide novel tools for developing anti-diabetic drugs. And that's always what you get at the end of it. If they can't sell you a drug, they don't care. So most people, I notice, want drugs. Fine. If you don't understand how you cannot just drug your way out of this, because your body's that complex, every single drug you ever take causes other problems in the body, every single one of them. And that's why the medical industry has made so much money. And that's why America particularly makes so much money. All these drug companies, they're drug companies in America, has Food and Drug Administration, so they make sure their food is a drug. They link it. We don't in Europe, and particularly Britain, we don't. So I completely disagree with the American way of doing it. And then, until they change that, they're literally selling you drugs because they wouldn't know the difference. It means food and drug. So when you take advice from Americans, and of course you go, but they're Americans, go, yeah, read between the lines. A lot of these guys would understand because you cannot, we don't in the UK, we separate our drugs from our food. And until you do that, you're going to be stuck in this entire cycle where all you're doing is buying drugs instead of eating food. That's the key thing. And exercise, well, because they can't put it in a pill, they're saying, well, we're not going to use it. We don't want to focus on it. That's all I see because everyone focuses on everything else. To me, I can see lots of ways, well, actually you can make tons of money out of exercise because I'm seeing whole loads of ways. The entire travel industry is all about movement. I would be looking into those kind of things. That's something I focus on over time. But right now, I'm just getting my frustrations out and learning how to present. And obviously, I'm waffling on like anything here. But this book here, you should have been able to see that. This is a slightly newer edition of what I studied. It was in the 90s, been 1996, something like that. This is what we had for PE the first time I studied it, which was when I was 18. And then I went on to degree to study it again in more depth. So it was PE, physiology, sports science, and things like that. So you might appreciate that I do get very frustrated when all these people say, oh, it's not understood, or they act as if it isn't understood. It's completely, very, very detailed, understood. When it comes to exercise physiology, it's just because doctors didn't study it, so they don't think it's important. That's all it means. Because they didn't understand it and they don't know it. They don't think it's very important, yet it's clinically now the most important thing you can do. Because exercise physiology is really, it's about the study of non-communicable disease, so lifestyle, and the impact of movement on your lifestyle, on your life, your health, and how energy moves through your body. And because, or when it moves well through your body, then you don't get illnesses such as insulin resistance, diabetes. It can reduce your chance of cancer. I say that a lot. Heart disease. It's all the same illnesses, and a lot of illnesses people are starting to realize, like Alzheimer's and dementia, could actually be related to the way energy flows through the body. And exercise can specifically make sure your brain stays as healthy as the rest of your body. It's all starting to get linked together, but it'll be another 20 or 30 years until people actually appreciate this, because then exercise physiology as a field and as people who understand it will have been around long enough. So I'm putting this out there now so that in the decades to come, people will start to realize this. So I just had a quick look and I thought I'd have a quick look. Where should I go and find it? And what it is, we've got a little section, fat dynamics during exercise, because I'm over time I'll do some reviews of this, but you can probably get an idea. These are complicated things, and it takes me a while to put it through, and really when I put all sorts together, no one really watches it because nobody gets this. People just don't realize how valuable exercise is. On top, because currently I'm looking into sleep. That's a whole other very important thing too. Doctors don't get that either. Okay, but these two things are fundamentally important. The nutrition is well covered. These two areas aren't. So people are asking the wrong questions. Well, then they won't get the answer then. Simple as that. But here we've got exercise training and fat use. And what it's saying is regular aerobic exercise profoundly improves long-chain fatty acid oxidation. See, depends on the area, the page you look at, but one was talking about carbohydrates, the other one's talking about fatty acid. So fats, okay? Well, guess what? Your body's been doing this for billions of years because it's basically, the cells have been there for billions of years. They've been doing this thing forever. They're really used to it. It's just an energy source. They get on with it. So if they need to do something, they need to move, then they simply metabolize whatever substrate is there. Yes, we're getting technical. So fats, carbohydrates, it's fine to them. They can metabolize them. As long as you give them the demand, they'll remember how to do it, because in their DNA are the codes to create whatever they need. So GLUT4, which is a glucose transporter that's on the cell, the edge of it's the lipid membrane, so it's on the edge of the cell, so it allows the glucose in, you get fat transporters as well. Yeah, I looked into that, It gets very complicated, but it's all just, yeah, your bodies need energy and they need it at certain rates. It adapts. They adapt. That's it. They're a lot more better than people realize. And once you start to love yourselves and appreciate yourselves, you'll realize how they got all the answers. So just trigger them by living as a normal human being. So they said it improves long-chain fatty acid oxidation, particularly from triacylglycerols. So yeah, it gets really complicated within active muscle, which is still fats within active muscle during mild to moderate intensity exercise. A whole list of references they've got. Yeah, this is very standard now. The beauty is this is 20 years ago. Now, it's just long lists of the same studies reporting the same kind of results consistently. But I find it fascinating that lots of people think the newer research is new, as in there wasn't anything before. I keep seeing, just because something's older, like older research, it gets ignored now. I find that fascinating. It wasn't any worse, it was brilliant. A lot of the really good stuff was older, not new. I'm old. Okay. So they've got a figure and an illustration. I'm not going to show it, copyright reasons, but it shows the percentage contribution of various energy substrates during 2 hours of moderate intensity exercise. In the trained and untrained state, you get a lot of this when you do exercise physiology. Standard stuff, and what it's saying is that when you're fit, you are better at actually using energy. And there was one point, let's see where it gets to it. Here we go, yeah. For total exercise, energy expenditure of about 1,000 calories, intramuscular triacylglycerol combustion supplied 25% of total energy expenditure before training. But this increased to more than 40% following training. And that's the key point, is that your body gets better at using fats. And because it gets better at using fats, because fats have more energy per kilogram, so per gram, because they're denser, your body gets better at using it, because then you can go further on the same amount of energy or the same weight. So, and it's not just that, it's for the same amount of oxygen. So you need a bunch of oxygen. What it does is it trains your lungs, because suddenly you need to use the oxygen in your lungs much better. So the whole of your system gets better at using oxygen, so therefore it can essentially metabolize these nutrients better, and it wants to use the full product of all the fats, because there's certain processes that break down the energy, the fats, the carbohydrates, and it's got a whole circle. It's called the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain, and each part of there's lots of steps, lots of chemical processes going on, and as those steps work through, they release energy at each point, and as they do that, you get the full amount of energy. And it's when you train really well. So particularly, you don't have to run. You can be an Olympic athlete, or you can just go out and move, and you'll find, well, that'll generally sort yourself out. Because I'm not an Olympic athlete. I have no intention of being, but I don't struggle for my weight, and I eat way more than everyone else, because the energy doesn't stick inside me. That's the real point I'm trying to make. The energy doesn't stick inside you, because suddenly your body, by moving, is saying, oh, let's be able to metabolize fats and metabolize them well, not just carbohydrates or nothing. Because all people are doing these days, when you sit down and watch TV and just drive all day and things like that, there's no demand on energy within your body. That's all that's happening. So I'm not going to go into more of that, because I've gone long enough here, and I've avoided as much as possible going too much into detail. Excuse me, I've said a bunch. But I will link to this one, that lovely guy, a doctor, I think it's a doctor or a nurse, the same thing I keep seeing everywhere. Great people sharing great work. However, I sat in a room of nurses at the university I work 10, 20 years ago, and I could tell no one wanted to listen, because they're so busy talking about what they know, because they know a ton of stuff, but they have no idea what they don't know. And I find this every time I go into hospitals. Of course, they're really good at what they're doing, but they don't want to hear about exercise physiology, even though I can show you books like that. They're not interested. They think they know the answer. Well, they don't, because they're not fixing it. And you can't say this because people will be upset, but they're clearly part of the problem because they don't understand it. And because they don't understand, doctors and nurses do not understand what fitness is because they've never studied it. That's the problem. Same as they couldn't go to the moon. They'd say it'd be impossible, but astronauts and, well, actually people who've made the rockets would say, yeah, it is possible. So my frustration is that the people who tell you it's not possible are the ones who just don't understand because they haven't studied that area. And I'm waiting for these industries to come together. And I've noticed how in medicine it takes 50 to 100 years. And I'm kind of counting. So I can protect my children. I can protect myself. My wife is starting to realize what I've been saying for 25 years is actually the truth. And she's now really into it because, well, her health suffered in that way that everyone else has been suffering. Mine hasn't because I knew better. I was lucky enough to find this out and then follow it through. Make all the mistakes as you do. I've had all sorts of injuries and this and that. But now I've come up with a nice, simple way. Just play with my kids, just have fun, just muck about. Go to all these wonderful beaches and things that we have around us. Everything you can do as well. Wherever you are, doesn't matter. There's beauty all around you. There's great things all around you. You've got people you want to play with, fun you want to have. Well, if you make it fun and you live how a human's supposed to live, I've been shocked. It's been wonderful how healthy you can be every single day. I still can't believe that I can do something, feel as tired as I am, and be fine the next day. I love it now because I'm so used to it. I keep thinking, blimey, I've got to get up tomorrow to do this, do that. But I get up and it's all fine. I want that for you. But I do have to rant about all the people that are lovely and are so close to the answers, but they just miss key things. Because we've all been there. I've been there and everything else, in money and fixing my cars and all sorts of other things. I didn't know all the detail and I wish people had told me better. So this is where I'm saying it's reverse here. Going and seeing the seals that you see behind me. And it's a very bad picture. I'm not focusing on being a brilliant YouTuber. That's not my focus here. I'm going to start doing presentations, go to different groups and show, for example, how pilots need to know this kind of stuff because it would help them fly better. Because they don't understand how they work as human beings. They know the planes that they're in and they know the fluids that are around. They know bits about how to fly. Of course they do, they know the physics of that, but they actually have no idea how they work. And if they did, they'd have a profound appreciation for how to fly better. And it would keep their health better for flying, so they could fly more. People don't realize that. So, that's, if you've been listening to this, great. I don't ask lots and lots of questions in the middle of it because I'm too busy trying to learn how to present and deal with all the challenges that get in the way. But drop comments. Tell me what's interesting, what I can improve. It's probably everything. Thank you for listening. I'm hoping this recorded well because if it hasn't, I might throw the laptop out the window because it's bloody annoying, all this stuff when it just, you do all this rant now and then nothing happens. But now over time, if you stick with this channel, if you reach out, I'll be sharing ways in which you can simply have lots of fun, really good fun, but it actually builds you. It becomes an investment in you. And I am so glad that I bothered to learn this when I was young. I didn't learn all the stuff other people did, so they're better in their ways and they have more money and other things. But what I have is better health, and that's really compounding every day. That's the best investment I ever made. And it's something I can pass on to everyone around me. And I'm starting to be able to make them my points. So I will see you on the next one, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.